decision-making
Yeah.
and overthrow what you were talking about?
Could. I mean, if you look at the Occupy movements, I think there are kind of two major streams that I think are both important. One is kind of policy-oriented. So we should do something about radical inequality. We should have a financial transaction tax, or take away corporate personhood, or fix up campaign financing. There's a lot of quite constructive, sensible suggestions on the policy side. The other part, which I think may be more important, is just forming communities. I mean, this is a very atomized society. People really are alone. I think some of the attractiveness of the social media, Facebook, everybody's got to talk about themselves on Facebook. It's just there aren't any communities. You don't talk to your friends, or your neighbors or something like that. And the internet kind of community is sort of anonymous. So you can kind of feel, I'm really alone, even if I'm writing about my date last night, So you get a lot of exhibitionism in the Facebook culture that people wouldn't do privately unless to a very intimate friend. And it's partly, I think, a reflection of the kind of alienation that's imposed on the society. People really are alone. It just didn't just happen. I mean, there are massive efforts to create this. The best way to control people is isolate them, atomize them, and make them, try to drive them to be concerned just with themselves, not anything else. And the Occupy movements, without planning to, just kind of broke out of that. They did create, people naturally interact that way if they have an opportunity. And when people converged in Scotty Park or Dewey Plaza down here or wherever it might be, they just quickly formed communities of mutual support and solidarity and helping one another and participating, the library. It's kind of striking that when Bloomberg sent the troops in to break it up, one of the first things they did is destroy the library. I think they destroyed thousands of books. And I think that's more than symbolic. They didn't have to destroy the books. That's essentially telling people, oh, you can't do anything by yourself. You want to have a library, we're going to run it for you. Same with the health services and community kitchens and everything else. That's really threatening, because that does help people break out of isolation and recognize that you don't have to accept subordination. Going back to the women's movement again, that's pretty much the way it started. It started with very small consciousness-raising groups, small groups of people who would just talk to each other about oppression that everybody felt, but they didn't regard it as anything other than the normal life. That's what life is. When you can talk to other people and you see it's not the way things have to be, we can do something, pretty soon it can spread very quickly. The civil rights movement is kind of the same. It started, of course it goes on back, centuries, has deep roots. But in the really modern period, say since the 60s, it's started with small individual acts, like a couple of kids sitting at a lunch counter in Greensboro, getting arrested and hauled off. Next day, a larger group came in. And pretty soon you had Freedom Riders. SNCC was formed.